Hi guys, happy Friday! Right, we are on to chapter 26 today, which is called The Fight. And the Goliath rats have just spotted Pip and Hans after Lucia gave away their plan. Okay. Pip bounded into the cold, bright moonlight with Hans, Madame Fassade, and the other animals by her side. The jagged web of spikes inside the fence loomed over the ground ahead, casting long, sharp shadows that reached out to snare everything that crossed its path. Daring to look behind her, Pip's heart hammered against her ribs as she saw the Goliath rats spit with fury and sprint after them from the neighbouring barracks. Beyond it, many more Goliath rats now hurried across the camp, growling murderously as they raced towards the fence with alarming speed. "They're gaining on us!" Pip cried, and at once, each animal running alongside her panted, trying to run even faster across the ground. "Don't look back," Henri bellowed, leaping out from the cover of the trees behind the fence and anxiously stamping the ground with his hooves. "Run! Run as quickly as you can!" G.I. Joe burst out from the treetops, charging over the fence and swiftly diving through the air. He swooped to Pip, Hans, and Madame Fassade, leading the sprint on the ground. "Quickly!" he cried. "Grab hold of me!" flying alongside them. Pip hurled herself to him, wrapping her arms around his neck, while Madame Fassade, Hans each caught him by a leg. The pigeon beat his wings with all his strength and climbed slowly into the air above the beavers, mice, and rabbits sprinting in terror for the fence. "What happened?" G.I. Joe panted. "Lucia's an Axis spy," Pip cried. "She's the one who sabotaged the plan to destroy the bridge. She's here, and she knows the Goliath rats. She's just warned them we were coming to rescue Hans and Madame Fassade." "What?" the pigeon said. "But that's impossible. Louis is one of us." "We saw her with our own eyes, G.I." "How can she even be here? We left her with Noah's Ark in the hollow." "It's her, G.I., Hans said, jumping with Madame Fassade from the pigeon's legs to Henri's back, who was now standing beneath them. "I'm sorry. It's been her all along." "It can't be," G.I. Joe cooed, landing beside them and shaking his head with disbelief as Pip clambered off his body. "I know her. She wouldn't do this." "If you don't believe us," Madame Fassade growled, "then look for yourself. Lucia is one of them." G.I. Joe turned, and seeing her white feathers flying swiftly across the camp in the bright moonlight, his beak fell open in shock. Sentry eagle owls flanked her on both sides, while another two glided closer to the ground, soaring through the air together above the Goliath rats chasing the terrified animals. "Maybe she's their prisoner," he cooed desperately, cocking his head with confusion and spreading his wings. "Then she's in trouble. I gotta save her." The stag shook his antlers and angrily stamped on the ground with his hooves. "No, G.I., Madame Fassade said, leaping onto his wing. "You cannot go back in there to save Lucia. She is the enemy, and they'll kill you. It's because of her that we are here. Don't you see? Her weapon was to make you care about her. She's a traitor. She fooled us all." "But Louis—" "No, G.I. If she's with them, she believes in their evil ways, in killing, in torturing, and in having power at all costs." "I can't believe it. She's—" "Listen, friend," Hans said urgently, staring earnestly into the pigeon's amber eyes. "Look at us." He pointed his paws to the other injured prisoners, sprinting on the other side of the fence. "See the scars on our bodies, and the stumps where their tails once were? Think of Leon. Think of me. Think of all the suffering you have seen during this war. Lucia is not who you think she is." There was a pause as the pigeon stared back at his mate, pursuing the petrified beavers, mice, and rabbits across the ground. Slowly, his eyes narrowed with rage. "Then she can't get away with this," he said, his feathers furiously ruffling all over his body. "We have to do something," Pip said, watching the Goliath rats and the owls snarling at the other animals' heels. "Run!" she cried, cupping her paws round her mouth. "Run as fast as you can!" But it was hopeless. The owls were the biggest birds they had ever seen. Each beat of their enormous wings propelled them forwards more powerfully than any animal running across the ground. Pip marched the pigeon and grabbed his wing in her paws, ready to climb onto his back. "We can't stay here and watch them die. We have to help them." "No, Pip," Hans said, dragging her from the pigeon's wing, firmly handing her to Madame Fassade, and jumping on the pigeon's back himself. "This is not your fight. We must put an end to this." "Shh, Pip," the hedgehog hushed, tightening her grip around the little mouse, struggling to get out of her grasp. "Let them go." "No!" Pip cried, feeling the sting of tears in her eyes. "Please, I can help. I know I can." "You have already helped us so much," Hans said. "Let us do what we need to." "Don't worry, little lady," G.I. Joe cooed, spreading his wings and plumping his chest feathers. "We're going to make them pay." With that, they burst upwards from the stag's back and charged into the sky. Breathless, Pip watched them hurtle over their heads and soar into the fight, outnumbered by 5 birds to 1. Seeing an owl swoop perilously close to one of the escaped mice, G.I. Joe and Hans torpedoed downwards. As its monstrous talons opened like a gaping jaw around its prey, the mouse squealed, hearing the owl and the pigeon squawk and clash violently behind her. "Yes!" Pip cried with Henri and Madame Fassade, watching the owl tumble in a heap on the ground. "Run!" she shouted to the terrified animals nearing the fence. "Keep going, it's not far now." G.I. Joe and Hans soared over the camp. Seeing the attack on its mate, the neighbouring owl narrowed its orange eyes in fury. Swivelling its head away from the beavers, mice and rabbits sprinting to the fence, it suddenly changed direction and charged at G.I. Joe with a fierce burst of its wings. He swiftly beat his own and desperately weaved through the sky, struggling to outrun the talons snapping at his tail feathers. "They've reached the fence!" Madame Fassade gasped, clasping her paws together with joy. "Look! That's it!" Pip cried, jumping up and down on the stag's back with triumph, watching the animals slowly navigate the thick web of barbed wire. "Come, friends," he said, dipping his head to the fence. The animals panted, travelling as swiftly as they could through the metal barbs. "I will take you home." "Watch out!" the stag bellowed a moment later, stamping the ground in alarm as the clatter of wings sounded above them and sounded overhead. Above them, Lucia and 2 eagle owls flexed their fearsome claws and plummeted through the air as Pip and Madame Fassade ducked, cowering in small balls on Henri's back. Swooping back upwards with empty talons, Lucia and the owls arched through the sky. Screeching furiously, they torpedoed again, diving at the stag's eyes and nose with their beaks and claws. Swiping his antlers from side to side in pain, Henri suddenly reared upwards. As he thwarted their attack with his front hooves, Pip cried out with fright and stumbled, desperately grappling for something to hold. "No!" Madame Fassade yelled, scrambling for her, but it was too late. Grazing the hedgehog's fingers with her own, a terrible lurch snatched from Pip's paws from under her. As she tumbled through the air, a cold pink waxy talon closed around her and lifted her into the sky. "Let me go!" Pip cried, fiercely struggling inside the bird's claws. Looking up, Pip laid eyes on the white pigeon and gasped in horror. "Lucia, how could you do this to us?" "We are not so different, you and me," the pigeon cooed calmly, speaking in her true German voice as she swiftly flew beside the sentry owls towards the smoking chimney. Appalled, Pip stared at her with fury racing over her fur, unable to believe she was the same pigeon she had met inside the hollow. "I am an orphan like you, Pip. The Nazis saved me when I lost everything, just like they're going to save you. We're nothing alike. I'd die before I'd join the Nazis. You're a liar and a traitor, Lucia. I will never forgive you for doing this to Noah's Ark." "What do you care, Pip?" she cooed, and her blue eyes bitterly narrowed. "You and your umbrella are not real members of Noah's Ark." "I'm more of a member of Noah's Ark than you'll ever be." A silly dream for a stupid little mouse kitten. "I'd rather fight and die with Noah's Ark than live in the nightmare of an Axis world." "Whatever you may think," Lucia smirked, "you'll thank me when you see what's going to happen next." Pip looked down into the camp below and blinked with confusion. The Goliath rats and the sentry owls had stopped chasing the animals picking their way through the barbed wire fence. Now they raced in the opposite direction, towards the control room. "No!" Pip cried, thrashing inside the white pigeon's grasp. "You can't turn the fence back on. They'll be fried alive." "The sooner you realise you cannot beat us," Lucia snarled, crushing Pip inside her talons and smiling, hearing the little mouse choke in her claws. "The sooner you will tell us everything you know about Churchill's secret animal army. Before long, you'll join us too. We'll be sisters again, Pip. You'll see." Pip's mind raced, thinking of a way to escape. Gasping for air, blood ringing inside her ears, she lurched forwards, trying to sink her teeth into the pigeon's fist, but Lucia only squeezed her harder. Feeling her consciousness ebb away, Pip saw the faces of Mama and Papa in the umbrella shop, and everyone she had met since the bomb blast in London. Dickon, Bernard Booth, Madame Fassade, Hans, G.I. Joe, Henri, Leon, and Noah's Ark, all fighting for freedom. No matter what the enemy did to her, she would sooner die than tell their secrets, and as the world turned black, Pip's last desperate thoughts were searching for a way to help the others. "Leave her alone," Leon squawked, diving headlong into the pigeon in an explosion of white and speckled feathers. Okay. Lucia shrieked in alarm, feeling the eagle's powerful golden claws snap around her throat. Wide-eyed with panic, she frantically beat her wings and opened her talons to slash at Leon's chest, sending Pip plummeting through the sky. "We got you, little lady," G.I. Joe cried, swooping under her. "It's all right," Hans said, catching her in midair and dragging her up onto the pigeon's back. Pip's eyes fluttered open. Throwing her paws round the rat's neck, she hugged him as tightly as she could. "Thank you," she said, trembling in his arms. "Dear, brave little Pip," he said, drawing her close. "I won't let anything happen to you." Pip looked over his shoulder, and her chest tightened with fear, seeing Leon and Lucia somersault through the sky, ripping one another's feathers with their bloody beaks and claws. "Hurry," Pip said, desperately pointing at the Goliath rats nearing the control room. "They're going to turn the fence back on. Everyone will die if we don't stop them now." But G.I. Joe raced in the opposite direction. "You're going the wrong way," she cried, pointing to the control room. "Stop! We need to go that way." Ignoring her, G.I. Joe burst forward over the fence. A few seconds later brought him back to Madame Fossard and the stag, encouraging the beavers, mice, rats and rabbits slowly weaving their way through the barbed wire. "This isn't a job for you," Hans said, peeling Pip off the pigeon's back and placing her into the hedgehog's open arms. "It's too dangerous, Pip. They'll stop at nothing to capture you, and I'll never forgive myself if that happened. I want you to find your family and get your umbrella to Italy." "But you're coming with me. Then you're going back to Bavaria." "That's right," Hans said as his brow furrowed. His handsome scarred face softened, and her heart swelled in her chest, seeing his eyes glisten in the moonlight. "Help the others now," he said, motioning to the animals clambering through the fence. "We'll be back soon." "See you soon, little lady," G.I. Joe said, giving her an affectionate wink. "It's been a pleasure." Leaping from the stag's back, G.I. Joe and Hans stormed over the fence into the camp once more. Ahead of them, a sentry owl charged into Leon, still bitterly brawling with Lucia in the night sky. Tumbling in the air, the eagle immediately suffered another brutal blow from a second owl, who had gleefully joined the fight. Helplessly watching Hans and G.I. Joe soar through the moonlight towards the fight, Pip's eyes filled with tears. "Come on," she said, firmly wiping a teardrop from her face as she watched the 3 mice clamber free from the barbed wire and race across the grass to the stag. "Henri, we've got to help them up." The stag leaped to the fence and bowed his head to the earth. Hurrying down his neck to the ground and grabbing the trembling animals by the paws, Pip and Madame Fossard pulled each one through the last tangles of the fence and guided them up to the stag, now kneeling and resting his chin on the ground. The rabbits also raced up Henri's head and along his neck to his back, where they huddled together in terror, watching the battle in the camp intensify. Behind the fence, G.I. Joe and Hans swooped above the Goliath rats nearing the control room. Diving fearlessly through the sky with his teeth and claws bared, Hans landed on the back of the leading Goliath rat. The other rats pounced on him, and G.I. Joe soared upwards, targeting only Lucia. Rocketing into her with all the strength he possessed, he threw her from her savage perch on Leon, still struggling against her and 4 sentry owls. Lucia was knocked senseless by the blow. Tumbling through the sky in a vicious clatter of wings, the pigeons torpedoed into the 2 gas lamps hanging either side of the control room door. The glass shattered on the timber wall in a grim burst of flame. "G.I.!" Pip squeaked, desperately searching for him in the fire that was quickly spreading up the building beside Hans, still fiercely brawling with the Goliath rats on his own. "Pip!" Madame Fossard cried firmly, pulling the last beaver free from the fence, before clumsily clambering up Henri's muzzle with her short legs. She came to a standstill at the top of his head and looked down at the umbrella mouse, still on the ground. "Pip, come on!" But Pip didn't hear, as she watched a Goliath rat snarl and her hands onto his back as 2 more sprang on him. G.I. Joe suddenly burst into the fray from the flames. Beating his blackened wings with all his might, he charged into one Goliath rat, and a moment later it lay motionless on the ground. "Pip!" Henri bellowed. "Climb up now! We must take cover in the woods!" Clambering up the fur of the stag's cheek, she joined the hedgehog perched between his ears. As he lurched forward and stood, Henri's head rose above the ground, and Pip's mouth fell open as she gained a clearer view of the fight behind the fence. The fire was now racing over the roof of the control room to the neighbouring barracks, and clouded the moon with thick black smoke. As the flames spread over the walls, the barracks door's hinges buckled in the heat. It burst open, and a bony man wearing baggy trousers with a matching striped shirt appeared in the broken doorway, kicking the smouldering timber away. Looking directly at the fence, he sprinted out of the building with a group of other men. As they ran, a voice shrieked with anger from the guard tower. Suddenly, a large bright shaft of light flashed into the gloom. A moment later, shots rang out into the night, and 2 owls swooping to attack Leon were caught in the crossfire and jerked in the sky before dropping lifelessly to the ground. "We need to get out of here," the stag said, diving into the cover of the forest. "Now!" "But what about the others?" Pip said, looking back at Hans, G.I. Joe and Leon, fighting the owls and the rats silhouetted against the fire, which was spreading wildly over the smoking chimney and surrounding buildings. More men were spilling out of the barracks and racing through the beams of the searchlights across the camp. Behind them, guards hurried into the moonlight and lifted rifles to their shoulders. As a storm of gunfire thundered across the night, Pip and the other animals drew each other close, hearing bullets hiss into the trees about them. The escaped men were leaping through the barbed wire and scaling the fence, even as the metal thorns clawed at their baggy clothes. Some were already vanishing into the forest. "These poor men will be hunted, and we cannot risk the humans discovering us too," Madame Fassard said urgently. "But we can't leave without them," Pip sobbed. "This is war, ma petite chérie. G.I. Joe, Hans, and Leon are soldiers fighting for our freedom, and so are we. We must get everyone to safety so we can redouble our efforts and weaken the enemy. All of us dying here means fewer soldiers on the ground at a time when we need them most. They know that better than anyone." Pip nodded reluctantly, and a terrible knot of guilt formed in her chest, even as she accepted Madame Fassard was right. "Don't worry, Sherry. Have faith. They will catch us up when they can." "Hold on, everyone," Henri bellowed, swiftly turning around as all the animals on his back grabbed large tufts of his fur in their paw. As the stag galloped forward, Pip looked over her shoulder at her friends battling with all their strength and courage. Feeling her heart splinter, she wept, unable to tear her eyes away from them. It was then that a huge explosion rocked the air around them. The control room disappeared into a thunderous white blast and lit up the surrounding forest in a fearful orange blaze. Okay, we're going to leave the next, because there's only 2 chapters left and they're both very short, so we're going to leave them for next time. But we've reached the climax of the big fight in the concentration camp. Who made it out? Okay, have a great weekend, and I will see you for our last 2 chapters on Monday. See you then. Bye.